Being an OCD icon is a lot of hard work. The stakes are high and the expectations are even higher. I don't even know what that means. I literally just wrote it. Calling my mom 13 times a day. Shh. Shh. Sorry, my cat thinks that we have ghosts in my bedroom, which we probably do. Calling my mom at least 13 times a day just to make sure she hasn't mysteriously died. Vacuuming the house at least twice a day, or I think I'm a bad person. Convincing myself that I cheated on my boyfriend if I look another man in his eyes. It could literally be a relative. It ain't much, but it's honest work. Really, really, really honest work, because I have to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, because I think that I will die a fiery, gruesome death if I don't always tell the truth. And that also means over-explaining myself, which makes me tell the truth in situations that I don't even want to tell the truth in. That's what I get for being a compulsive liar when I was a little kid. So anyway, 2 years ago, I made a video on this channel talking about my experience with getting diagnosed with OCD, which is something that I never thought I would do. The second I got told I had OCD, I was like, oh, I'm not telling anyone. Like, I'm taking this shit to my grave. She might have OCD too. It's highly contagious. Anyway, I told myself that I'm taking this OCD diagnosis to the grave because I do not want anyone to know this. And this is a very vulnerable thing for me. And I ended up making a video about it and other videos about it and TikToks about it and tweets about it. And now I'm making another video on it because if I have to be diagnosed with this hell of an illness, this disease, this very, very contagious illness, then I might as well monetize off of it. You know what pays the bills around here? You know what keeps my lights on? OCD. You know what doesn't? Her. So, well, okay, she does sometimes. You get good views on TikTok. Before we get into the rest of the video, I did want to thank today's sponsor, which is Curology. Thank you, Curology. Since I'm talking about OCD so heavily in this video, I feel like it's important for me to talk about another way that OCD affects me, which is it actually affects my skin quite a lot. I've had a skin picking issue for as long as I can remember, and I've been pretty open about it on my channel, and it's actually something that's very common amongst people with OCD, but it's also common with people who don't have OCD. Meaning that whenever my skin was experiencing a breakout, or even when it wasn't experiencing a breakout, I would still pick at my skin constantly. And doing so can actually lead to just more breakouts, more acne, and more clogged pores, which is exactly what I have experienced throughout the years. I've been using Curology for over 3 years now, and it has definitely grown with me as a person, and so has my formula. I love that my custom formula can change and evolve with me as a person depending on what my skin needs. And I appreciate that I have a skincare provider that has full decision-making power over my formula, because I can relate to them some of the skin issues that I'm experiencing, and then they can figure out a formula that works best for my skin. So sometimes my skin picking problem could be like non-existent, and it could be totally dormant for a few months, and then suddenly it can pop back up and be a really big problem in my life for a few months again. So then I have the option to message my dermatology provider and say I'm experiencing skin texture and dark spots, and then they can adjust my formula to work for me. Another one of my all-time favorite products from Curology is their emergency spot patches. I go through these so quickly, and so when I do have a breakout and I don't want to pick at it, I can just pop one of these over my pimple, and it prevents me from actually picking at it while also helping my skin. It's very good. If you want, you can start your Curology journey today with the link in my description. Subscription required, subject to consultation. Thank you, Curology. Slowly, I started to tell people that I was close to that I have OCD because a lot of changes for myself were coming up. Therapy at first made my OCD much worse, and so did the diagnosis, because I was overanalyzing everything in my life because I didn't know what was really me and what was OCD suddenly. And I also was planning on starting medication soon, which I wanted support with because yeah. And most people in my life are super supportive. I'm so lucky that my family and my friends and my partner, all extremely supportive. My subscribers were super supportive and told me about their experiences with OCD. Unfortunately, some people were not as supportive and said some super hurtful things like, oh my god, that makes sense, why you were such a neurotic bitch growing up, which okay, true, but you don't have to say that. But ultimately, getting a diagnosis has been one of the best things that I could have done for my quality of life. Because like I said, if I wasn't diagnosed, then I couldn't capitalize off of it. And for that, I'm grateful. And plus, I want to make this video because I think OCD is so extremely misunderstood. What is OCD? Obsessive compulsive disorder is categorized by unreasonable thoughts and fears, obsessions, that lead to compulsive behaviors. OCD often centers on themes such as a fear of germs or the need to arrange objects in a specific manner. Symptoms usually begin gradually and vary throughout life. Treatment includes talk therapy, medications, or both. The best way that I try to describe it to people who don't have it and don't understand it is my brain is stuck on a broken record sometimes. a lot of the times. I have like repeated thoughts or repeated emotions or repeated things in my head that I just can't get out of the loop from. And I have things that I feel like I have to do over and over and over again, no matter what anyone tells me, what I tell myself, doesn't matter. And the more that I learn about it and the more that I'm like really genuinely putting the time into work on myself, I realize how much distrust it's created in me, so much unsureness and shame and guilt in my life, which is like a pretty common theme for most people who have OCD. And I think talking about mental health helps break the stigma, and it's so important. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm a huge advocate for mental illness. I love mental illness. Mental illness is here and it is here to stay. Go mental illness! With that being said, I think that celebrities and people with platforms talking about it can help and result in so much good. And I think it's very noble of me, the biggest celebrity ever and international superstar and OCD icon, to be speaking up and talking about OCD today. So listen up. I get excited when I find out that a celebrity or another content creator has OCD. Not because I want them to suffer, but I'm like, oh my God, okay, cool. I'm not alone with these thoughts, because it is so extremely isolating and you don't even want to talk about them. And I'm sure in this video, I might not even feel comfortable to talk about it in the fullest extent because you're not my therapist. OCD can feel so extremely isolating and you are already so ashamed of your thoughts. So like, why would you want to talk about it to anyone else in the first place, especially someone who doesn't have it or understand it? So it's very nice and like relieving when I find out that someone else has it. At the same time, it's like extremely painful. Like, what do you mean I'm not the biggest scorned woman on this earth? What do you mean I'm not the biggest sufferer and victim on this planet? I don't understand. This is extremely disappointing. This is shocking. This is hurtful. And I was really hoping to be the most disadvantaged woman alive. But okay. Jeanette McCurdy, Howie Mandel, Daniel Radcliffe, John Green. I can't tell you how appreciative I am about these people opening up about their OCD. Howie Mandel was my first introduction to OCD ever. I watched so much Deal or No Deal as a kid. When I was a kid, a lot of adults would say to me like, oh my God, Nicole, you're so mature for your age. And, you know, I thought that might be because like, oh my God, I have trauma or I had to grow up really fast. No, it was just because I watched 3-hour reruns of Deal or No Deal a day. That shit ages you. And to be honest, Deal or No Deal probably gave me OCD. I did something up here to my brain chemistry. Reading Jeanette McCurdy's book, I'm Glad My Mom Died, that was so amazing to read. Jeanette McCurdy talked a lot about her rituals that she did, her compulsions, and her thoughts and belief that, you know, she was talking to the Holy Ghost when this whole time it was just her OCD. I'm so extremely grateful that I grew up Catholic, because if I hadn't, then I don't know if I would have ever tried communion wafers. And also, I too talked to the Holy Ghost as a child, which then later helped me realize was also my OCD. The Holy Ghost didn't make me snap my underwear like 10 times and say 3 Hail Marys like he did to Jeanette McCurdy, but it was something very similar. So, and outside of real celebrities, there's a bunch of characters within movies and TV shows that also have OCD. Monk, Sheldon Cooper, the Mad Hatter, Rue Bennett, Danny Tanner, and my favorite, Andrew from Big Mouth. Andrew from Big Mouth was like the first time in television that I saw a really accurate portrayal of OCD. At least one that's most closely related to me.
Allow me to show you the Glauberman method.
The Glauberman method?
It's a delicate dance in just 17 steps.
17?
Look. Lock. Double check the lock. A tissue, 2, 3, 4. A lotion, pump, pump, pump. A triple check the lock again.
I'm sorry, you checked the lock 3 times?
Nick, you interrupted me! Now I have to do it all over again. I'm not obsessive. I just know that if I ever deviate from my very precise method, even a smidge, something terrible will happen.
Personally, I don't feel like I killed my grandfather because I masturbated in my room and didn't do a whole ritual, because that's how Andrew feels, but my grandfather is dead. Both of them. So I'll leave you with that. But unfortunately, I will say that a lot of the stereotypes that are portrayed about OCD in media are not completely accurate. Characters with OCD or implied OCD in TV shows or movies often only portray the compulsive side of the disorder and miss the obsessions or fear and distress that precede the compulsions. In this one article, How Media Can Make Us Fear, Belittle, and Empathize, from TV shows like Monk to movies as Good as It Gets, we commonly see obsessive compulsive disorder portrayed in pop culture. However, it is not always portrayed accurately, and this can cause real harm to people living with the disorder. For some people, media representations may be the first way way they learn about OCD and the people affected by it. These portrayals are inaccurate and promote stereotypes. They can contribute to the stigma around mental illness that often stops people from seeking help or talking about their struggles. Therefore, it is important to assess OCD in media and the ways in which people's perceptions of the disorder may be influenced. And before we get any further with talking about the harm that misrepresentation of OCD in the media can cause, I want to show two real people who some people might put them under the celebrity and the character category, but two real people who do a really good job at misrepresenting OCD. And that would be the ones that claim that OCD is a blessing. Khloe Kardashian does have her own show called XOCD. I'm jealous because it could have been Nicole CD. It doesn't sound as good, but I wish it did. Nicole CD, Nicole CD. And you know what? Khloe Kardashian may very well have OCD. Okay, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a doctor. I would not want to diagnose someone that I literally do not know. But I think what kind of sucks, and maybe Khloe Kardashian didn't really realize this at the time when she was saying this, but what kind of message you're putting out there when you say OCD is a blessing.
So simple, but yet people find this fascinating when they come into my house, and they also think that I am a sociopath, that I take the time to do this once a month. But you know what? You say OCD is a disease, I say it's a blessing.
And anyone who struggles with OCD will tell you that OCD is not a blessing, like in any right. Like, absolutely not. Except monetizing off of it, that's it. Khloe Kardashian's portrayal of OCD to the media is very palatable. A side that's like, ooh, look how clean and organized I am. I'm such a put together person, what a blessing. It's very palatable. It's easy for consumers to digest and be like, oh my God, maybe I have OCD too. Which then brings me into Gabby Hanna.
Everything that anybody's ever told me is OCD and I need to work on are things that make my life substantially better. Obsessively washing my hands, my skin is clearer, I get sick less often. Obsessively organizing and wanting everything to have a place. I always know where my shit is. I'm happier. I have a better schedule. Obsessing over what I put in my body and my fitness. I'm in the best shape of my life. I feel good mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. I'm more hydrated. I make better choices. I go to bed earlier. It's like they took all of these things that, when done properly and allowed to be expressed properly, and put a blanket disorder over it. Oh, you recognize patterns and numbers in a way that make you use logic in a way that helps you philosophize and theorize? You're out of your motherfucking mind. I don't buy it. Sorry.
Once again, not a therapist. If you're experiencing these obsessions and these compulsions and they do not bring you distress, that's not OCD. Literally, that's part of the diagnosis. The obsessions and the compulsions have to be distressing. And there are captions saying, I'm not saying people don't suffer. I'm saying the made up labels and highly profitable treatments are a lie. I'll agree with that. My treatments may be extremely profitable to those who are profiting off of me, but they're not a lie, because that shit works, which I'll get into later. Someone commented, so if it literally doesn't interfere with your life, you don't have it by definition, it's a debilitating condition. And Gabby Hanna responds, it's not a debilitating condition if you're taught how to meditate and practice self-care and self-love. They don't want you to know that though. Bitch, I meditated and practiced self-care and self-love my little heart out. I even did it on this channel. Like, I was literally fucking screaming for help before I knew what was wrong with me. I'm sorry. I loved my hot yoga class that I used to go to, but that shit did not fix my OCD. Like I was hoping. It's really unfortunate. And then someone comments, this is not OCD. To which she comments back, exactly. The reason I bring this all up is because diagnosing yourself like this or misrepresenting the illness can actually do way more harm than good. One of the reasons that I didn't get diagnosed until I was 21 and I'm 23 now is because I didn't see anyone talking about suffering the way that I was suffering. I didn't know that I had a problem because from what I'm figuring out, I've had OCD since I was a child. And when you're so used to something and your thought processes and the way that you function as a human, when you're completely used to that, you don't question it because you're just used to it. Also, not to mention how much shame and guilt I was feeling in general, to the point where I did not open up about what I was experiencing to anyone. I saw people like Khloe Kardashian and Gabby Hanna talk about OCD like it's like some sort of cleaning disorder. So of course I didn't associate my strong phobia of pregnancy to the point where it was debilitating to live some days. That's how fucking bad it was. Of course I didn't associate it to OCD because I was like, what the hell does this have to do with cleaning? I'm just fucking nuts. Because a lot of times when OCD is talked about in the media, like Gabby Hanna and Khloe Kardashian's, they talk about the good compulsions. Cleaning, being organized, working out, going to bed early. I'm such a self-disciplined person. My OCD is so crazy. And I have some good compulsions too. If I told people like, oh my God, yes, I'm obsessed with telling the truth, and I have to tell the person who is standing right in front of me every single thought that pops into my head, even if I don't want to tell them that because I'm afraid of lying to them, people would be like, oh my God, what an honest woman. I'm respected. I'm seen as morally good. This is seen as, okay, this is my channel. We can talk about your OCD some other time, girly. Okay, that's enough. This is a good compulsion to have, even though it's gotten me in so much trouble and has made my life a living hell at some points. But if I spoke about my bad compulsions, nobody want to talk about 9/11. If I told people that I genuinely feel like I have cheated on my boyfriend if I looked another man in the eye, or that when I see a pregnant woman on the street, I'm scared that it's contagious and I'm gonna get pregnant, or how I sometimes drive 100 miles to buy something because my brain told me I have to do it, or how I'm unable to eat certain things because I'm so scared of it being contaminated in various ways, or feeling like if I buy the wrong fucking soup can at the store, then I'm gonna die. If I was very open about those traits, they would not be seen as good compulsions. I'd be seen as a crazy fucking bitch. And that's just like scratching the surface of what I'm comfortable talking about. With OCD, some people have such terrible, intrusive thoughts where they genuinely fear that they are awful, terrible people. They worry that they're dangerous, or that they accidentally hit someone on the road and don't remember, or that they're pedophiles after simply just interacting with a child, or looking at a child in the grocery store, or other extremely violent and gruesome and terrible intrusive thoughts that enter their head. OCD is so much more than the good and safe compulsions that are shown in the media. It's a very serious mental illness that has varying degrees and causes so much distress. New studies suggest that OCD sufferers are 10 times more likely to commit suicide or display suicidal behavior. Additionally, 5 to 25% of people with OCD have admitted to attempting suicide at some point in their lives. And those people will be the ones that are villainized and like looked down upon by other people because it's like, ew, who has those fucking kinds of thoughts or compulsions? But as long as you're like, no, it's a blessing, I just have to rub all my Oreos in this little cookie jar, then it's like, girl boss. Everyone's got a little bit of OCD, am I right? Everyone has a little OCD until it's time to have nasty, violent, terrible, distressing, intrusive thoughts that if you spoke of them out loud, they would be career ruining, social exiling, and just not the social norm to talk about at all. When I actually got diagnosed with OCD, I didn't really care much when people like misuse the word OCD or like use it as an adjective. I really did not give a fuck. I was like, okay, it doesn't affect me. I literally don't care what others do. Them using this will not suddenly make my OCD worse nor better. Until I started talking to other doctors who are not professionals within OCD or mental health, and I have to say I have OCD, and they're like, okay, so you're like super clean or whatever, right? Or when I tell old friends that I have OCD and their perception is, okay, yeah, we all have a little OCD. Or when I wasn't steered into the right direction of actually going to an OCD specialist for my psychologist, because OCD is a good mental illness to have. First of all, getting treatment is hard. It's extremely hard. Being on a 3-month wait list to see a psychiatrist is extremely hard. Finding doctors and having access to them in general is hard. Hard to open up, hard to get a diagnosis, hard to go to therapy, hard to try different medications. It's really fucking hard. I've dedicated almost the last 2 years of my life to truly getting better with this because it started to take control of my life. And sometimes I wonder if some of these obstacles would be easier to navigate or overcome if OCD was not so stigmatized. People making OCD out to be this cleaning disorder has made it incredibly hard for me to recognize that I have it, and as well as so many others. Because OCD wasn't shown to me in the way that I had experienced it, because I didn't have Andrew from Big Mouth in my life when I was like 11 years old, it never clicked that I had it. The first time that I experienced OCD in my real life and not on television was when I met a kid in middle school, and he had to touch the door a certain amount of times and also make sure that it was locked a certain amount of times. And then I had a friend who was so afraid of germs, especially school germs, that he would have to wash his hands until they bled and then had to sleep at night with socks and Vaseline on his hands because they just cracked and bled so much. And I didn't experience either of those things, so I was like, okay, that's not me. And then I was in college studying with a friend of mine in the business school building. I wasn't even a business student. And all the business students like to gatekeep their buildings because they are very cute. He had a coffee bar and comfy chairs. Anyway, that's the one thing I miss about Temple. So I remember my boyfriend hadn't responded to my texts in like 4 hours or so. And I was like, oh God, something really bad must have happened. And I started to panic, and my automatic reaction was to go on Google and start searching up North Carolina State University bus accidents, North Carolina State University school mass shootings. And that to me was completely like logical because that's what I thought happened to him. And I just wanted answers. And that's when the friend that I was with was like, are you diagnosed with OCD? And I said, no. And he's like, I have OCD and I go to an OCD specialist and I really think that you should get tested and go. Okay, fast forward a few years, I end up going back to therapy. And to be honest, I didn't even really know why I went, but I was like, I know something's a little off about me. I know something's there. And I was like, well, I need to get my money's worth out of therapy because I'm paying out of pocket. So I decided to write every negative emotion that I had in my head that day. Anytime a negative thought would come into mind, what would be my reaction afterwards? And I just had a whole notes app listed, and I started spiraling in the staples. I remember this day so vividly. And when I looked back at the list recently, it did not take a genius to realize that there was a very clear pattern. Anyway, the point of what I'm trying to say is that I thought me keeping my OCD a secret would be really good for me because then people wouldn't look down upon me and then people wouldn't, have preconceived judgments of me. But I realized I already am pretty open about talking about mental health and me talking about my OCD has only made me even more open about talking about it. And I realized how much good it actually causes when you're actually honest about your emotions and not feeding into the stereotypes that are always given in the media. OCD already feels so extremely isolating that I didn't need to make it even more isolating to myself. And that's why I'm so grateful that I ever opened up on my YouTube channel about having OCD. And this is not me diagnosing you, okay? Please, let's make that very clear. This is not me diagnosing you on the internet, which I want to make a whole video on its own because I could talk about that forever. Don't diagnose people on the internet. Don't diagnose anyone with anything if you're not a professional and if they're not asking or seeking a diagnosis. I'm not putting blame onto people, but it was extremely detrimental to my mental health when I would go online, like this being my career, and I would read a new diagnosis. Hey, this is my thing. And I would go online and every single day I would read a new diagnosis from someone online in my comment section. It fucks you up. When you already have a lot of paranoia and anxiety, it's just a really bad thing to receive. But oh my God, some people were right about the OCD diagnosis. Yay, good for you. Anyway, I realized that talking about my experience, it may encourage more people to go and get help and get a diagnosis for themselves, even if it is an OCD. Because mental illness, and especially OCD, looks so different for everyone. And shitty portrayals of OCD makes it difficult for people to get diagnosed because one size does not fit all. But when you're only shown one side to you, especially in the media or online, it feels like that is the only size that's available. And then it's like you're naked. So maybe hopefully after watching this video, you may reconsider how you yourself talk about OCD and maybe some of the stereotypes that you put on OCD. Or maybe you might just remove it from your vocabulary and being like, I'm so OCD, because that's not even grammatically correct, okay? Also, I have to mention, I don't know why you would want a mental illness. I love making jokes about it because it helps me cope and it's fucking funny. But I don't know why you would want OCD. Whoever pitched OCD as like the desirable mental illness, I'm coming after you. You were evil for that. I'm always down to try and consume new content that portrays OCD, but to be honest, I really haven't found a lot that feels like it really resonates to me. Like I said, Andrew from Big Mouth, and that's about it. I always kind of hesitate from talking about specific types of OCD that I suffer with because I was always afraid that people would use it against me. Or I kept thinking about how like severely embarrassing it is. Like, do you know how embarrassing it was to even tell my therapist, like, yeah, I'm really fucking scared of pregnant women. And like I said, I have a long way to go with my OCD journey. I'm currently in exposure therapy, which has been the best thing to happen to me. I did cognitive behavioral therapy before because that's what was available to me at the time, but truly, I feel like sometimes it only made my OCD worse because I wasn't with a specialist and I just kind of got to sit for an hour and talk and ruminate about the same thing over and over again and just kind of like seek assurance. And then my therapist would give me reassurance, which was like the last thing that I needed. So now I'm in exposure therapy, which basically means I get a lot of homework from her, and I also get a lot of tough love from her. Like I have to be like, I'm scared my mom's gonna die. And she's like, you have to accept that your mom's gonna die. Your mom could die right now. Your mom could be dead as we speak. And you have to accept that. And it's a really good hour. It's really good. To be transparent, I've been on 3 different medications for OCD. I'm not all at once, but just in general. I've tried 3 different medications and I finally have found a little cocktail that works for me. I feel like I say that once every few months, but you know what? Things change. I try to self-medicate. Don't do that shit. I developed tics at one point because of a side effect from my medication. And yeah, the journey is definitely not linear, but I'm very, very proud of the progress that I've made. If you feel like anything that I've said in this video today resonated with you, please consider getting a diagnosis or going to a therapist or a psychiatrist or whatever you have access to. Just not Gabby Hanna's TikTok page, please, I'm begging. But I also kind of hope to show that there have been times in my life where I've had such debilitating OCD and I probably have like escaped the face of the earth and no one had seen me for a while. And I was like, there's no way that I will ever be happy or fulfilled in my life. And then somehow here I am in March of 2023 feeling happy and fulfilled and living with OCD. That's not mild. It's doable. Anyway, you like to clean your kitchen before bed. You like to make sure that your winged eyeliner is perfect before you leave the house. You like to organize your closet by color. You might have OCD. You also might not. And you might just be annoying. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, please make sure that you leave it a like because that helps me out so much. Also leave a comment if maybe you also struggle with OCD. If you have any recommendations for books or movies or television where the portrayal of OCD is like accurate and helpful and good, I'd love to hear about it. And I'm sure other people in the comment section would too. Make sure that you subscribe if you want to be nasty. If not, you're disgusting. Also, make sure you have your bell notifications on so you know every single time I post, or else you are gross. If you want to follow me on my other social media, Instagram, Twitter, Depop, Spotify, it's just at Nicole Rafiee. And if you want to follow me on TikTok, it's at Nikki Nasty. I'm going to go now. I'm going to go line up some Oreos in a jar and organize them all pretty and avoid pregnant people at all costs. All right. Thank you.